Ukraine, 1990 to 1991. Imagine the year 1990. In the United States, it is the era of MTV, the debut of The Simpsons, and the triumph of the Cold War. But across the world, inside the Soviet Empire, a giant was waking up. To understand the scale, imagine a territory nearly the size of Texas. Ukraine is about 233,000 square miles. Texas is 268,000. But while Texas had 17 million people in 1990, Ukraine had nearly 52 million. That is, the population of California and Texas combined, packed into one country. For the average American in the 90s, Ukraine was a white spot on the map, just a part of the USSR. But this state of the Soviet Empire was an industrial powerhouse that would shock any resident of America's Steel Belt. Today, we will look at 1990 and 1991 to see how a nation was born. A nation that, overnight, became the third largest nuclear power in the world. The industrial monster. Let's look at the industry. In 1990, the US was a global leader. But look at the numbers. The entire United States produced about 90 million tons of steel that year. At the same time, Ukraine alone was producing 52 million tons. Imagine, one region, smaller than Texas, producing more than half of the total steel output of the entire United States. If you grew up in Pittsburgh or Cleveland, you know the Steel Belt. Well, Ukraine was the Steel Belt on steroids. It was the same with coal. In 1990, Ukraine mined about 165 million tons of coal. For comparison, Pennsylvania, the coal heart of America, mined about 68 million. Ukraine produced 2.5 times more coal than all of Pennsylvania. It was a massive industrial machine. Now, look at the fields. Ukraine is often called the breadbasket of Europe. In 1990, it harvested over 50 million tons of grain. To put that in perspective, take Kansas, the leading wheat producer in the US. In those years, Kansas produced about 10 to 12 million tons. Ukraine was essentially 5 Kansases working at the same time. The human chain and freedom. In January 1990, something happened that America would call a national awakening. On January 21st, a cold winter day, millions of Ukrainians took to the streets. They held hands and created a human chain from Kyiv to Lviv. That is 370 miles of people. It is like a continuous line of humans standing from Los Angeles to San Francisco. Imagine that sight. Hundreds of thousands of people on the highway singing songs of freedom. It was a signal to Moscow and to Washington. Ukraine declared, "We are not Russia. We are a separate nation." What was the White House doing during this time? In August 1991, President George H.W. Bush flew to Kyiv. And here, one of the strangest moments in U.S.-Ukraine history occurred. President Bush spoke to the Ukrainian parliament. But instead of supporting freedom, he warned against it. He delivered a speech that the New York Times later called the Chicken Kyiv speech. Bush feared the collapse of the USSR. He feared nuclear chaos. He told Ukrainians not to leave Moscow, calling their desire for freedom suicidal nationalism. Imagine, the leader of the free world telling people who lived under a dictatorship for 70 years that they should not rush toward independence. It was a shock to Ukrainians who saw America as a beacon of democracy. But history did not wait for Washington. Following a failed coup in Moscow, on August 24, 1991, Ukraine's parliament passed the Act of Independence. And here is the most fascinating part. At the moment of independence, Ukraine automatically became the third largest nuclear power in the world. Listen to these numbers. Ukraine inherited 176 intercontinental ballistic missiles. They carried over 1,200 nuclear warheads, plus another 2,500 tactical nuclear weapons. In total, nearly 4,000 nuclear units. To put that in scale, in 1991, Ukraine had more nuclear weapons than Great Britain, France, and China combined. Ukraine could have leveled any nation on Earth. Washington suddenly realized they had to negotiate with a new giant, one with more missiles than all of America's NATO allies. On December 1, 1991, Ukraine put the final period on the story. A national referendum was held. The question was simple: do you support independence? In the US, many experts predicted a civil war. They thought the East and Crimea would vote no. They were wrong. 90.3% of Ukrainians said yes. In Donetsk, 83% voted for independence. In Crimea, over 54%. The entire nation chose freedom. 1 week later, the leaders of Ukraine, Russia, and Belarus met in a forest in Belovezha. Leonid Kravchuk, the first president of Ukraine, put the referendum results on the table. He told Boris Yeltsin, "My people voted for freedom. The Soviet Union is no more." On that day, 3 men officially signed the death warrant of the USSR. The Soviet Union collapsed and ceased to exist without a single shot fired.
Christmas 1991, the Soviet flag over the Kremlin was lowered forever. For America, it marked the triumphant end of the Cold War. But for Ukraine, it was only the beginning of a long and treacherous journey. Ukraine entered 1992 as an industrial titan and the world's third-largest nuclear superpower. Yet, behind this immense power lay the dark side of the 90s, crushing hyperinflation that wiped out life savings overnight, a grueling struggle for the Black Sea Fleet, and finally, the Budapest Memorandum, the ultimate high-stakes gamble. Did Ukraine make the right choice by surrendering its nuclear shield in exchange for a promise? It was a decision that changed the world forever, and its echoes still resonate today. We are just starting to uncover the truth about the birth of a new Europe. Ahead of us lie even more dramatic chapters that you won't find in any textbook. Subscribe now and turn on all notifications so you don't miss the powerful continuation of this saga. If you believe this history deserves to be told, please hit the like button. It helps this story reach more people who need to hear it. And we want to hear from you. Did you know that Ukraine was once such a massive nuclear power? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next one.